The Ambitious Africans podcast is building more than conversations. We're building a thinking community. If you're navigating a challenge, transition, or decision in your personal or professional journey, we invite you to share it with us using the link below. Selected reflections will be discussed in future episodes where other listeners will offer their perspective, insights, and lived experiences. This is not about having it all figured out. It's about learning out loud, hearing different viewpoints, and lightening the mental load by thinking together. Your submission can be anonymous, and the goal is perspective, not judgment. Go into the show notes below, fill out the form, and share your challenges, ideas, thoughts, and decision points with us, and we'll be more than happy to give you some directions. Dear ambitious African, this is your host, Secho. In this podcast, we will discuss everything about our journeys and experiences towards achieving our goals for life and work as phenomenal change leaders in our varied communities. We will feature other ambitious Africans crushing it through arts, social activism, tech innovations, entrepreneurship, and positive lifestyle and holistic well-being. We are the generation that is redefining Africa as we know it, and as an ambitious African, now is the time to get involved. Give us your feedback and ideas for our next podcast, and let's keep the conversations going. See you inside. Hi, welcome to the Ambitious Africans podcast. This is your host, Secho, and I hope you had a good day today. I'm currently in assignment mode. I have an exam coming up. It's exactly a week from this recording. But that wouldn't stop me from reaching out to you and saying hello, would it? Of course not. So, how have you been? How has your new year been so far? It's been a couple of days into 2026, and I'm guessing that you're finding your feet. No pressure if you're still healing or recovering, or maybe waking up from 2025. No pressure at all. One thing about the new year is similar to what I've been discussing over the last couple of days. They're all tying in a bit about how seasons work and how human beings try to structure things, and one of them is time. And so this concept of a year beginning on a particular day and ending on a particular day is pretty much man-made, but we go with it because we've all come to a consensus as a people, whether locally or globally, that this is how we are going to operate regardless of time zones, and also obviously based on research and history and all those things. Reason why political awareness is very important, like I mentioned over the last two or three episodes before this one, like understanding how the world works and how things are structured would give you some sense of healthy detachment in a way that you don't put pressure on yourself when things are not going in a particular way. So the point I'm trying to make is, if you're still leaning into 2026 or what the world calls 2026, that's totally fine. But I hope your day has been good. Today, I want to talk about let's say today will be like a part 2 of your enoughness. The episode I did, I think 2 or 3 episodes back, of owning your enoughness or leaning more into your enoughness as you go into this new year or perhaps this new season of your life. And I wanted to share one tip or one thought process that has helped me really lean more into my enoughness. Before I do that, let me share practically what it means for me currently to live in my enoughness. If you're new here, you haven't listened to the previous episode, when we say enoughness, or when I say enoughness, it's coming to the realization that you as you are, without any value addition, without any pampering, zhuzhing, jazzing up, or adding anything to you, you are perfectly enough. your quirks, the way you work, the way you interact with people, the way you like your tea or beverage, the way you like your dinner or your lunch, the food you like, the color you like, the music you like, the things you don't like, everything, even all the negative things about you, all coming together to form this amazing mix of this one in a billion people, in an 8 billion people of a human being, which is you, is perfectly enough. And I want to challenge you to default to engaging with that version of yourself before you add on the other things that you think you should be doing to meet societal expectations. So that is my definition of enoughness. And I'm going to share a practical example of how or what that has looked like for me in the past few years or weeks or months, really. Not weeks, months, because we years and months. Currently, though, my enoughness has evolved. Before, it used to look like rebellion, rebelling against things that perhaps my mom would say, you should be doing this, or my friends would say, you should be doing this, or school or anything, anyone else. Whenever I heard you should be doing this, guess what? I'm going the other way. I'm doing the exact opposite. And I think that was the first stage of my exploring my enoughness, because it didn't make sense to me why I had to show up in a particular way to be accepted. Fundamentally, that was what it was. Back then, I didn't frame it using a language as living in my enoughness. No, it was really questioning the import of some of the things I would hear, especially as a Black woman, right? So that has been my journey. Beyond that, it has also been questioning. So we went from flat out being a rebel, not in a pushy way, but in my own, okay, that makes no sense. I'm not going to do that way, because, and I would come to learn later that was how I'm built. Like, I'm built in a way that I need to understand deeply what exactly you're getting at to go with you. If I don't understand it, I can't go with it if it doesn't make sense. Like, if it does, and I'm not even going like high level intellectual level makes sense. I'm talking about like basic logic that my 5-year-old or 6-year-old niece would understand. If they say, and that's a good test to have, by the way. That's actually a good hack. Explain something to someone who's 5, a child who's 5, and if they tell you it makes no sense, you should listen to them, because it definitely makes no sense why we're doing these things. So that was big for me. The evolution. First, it was like, it doesn't make any sense. I'm not going to do that, and then it was perceived as being rebellious. However, it transitioned into, or evolved into, being curious and having questions. And so, and this is very, very normal. I think at some point in our adulting life, you're going to come to terms with all the things that you're supposed to do. It's like once you hit a certain age, there's a tall list of things you need to do. It's like you need to invest, you need to take care of yourself, you need to go to therapy, you need to look good, you need to save money, you need to make time for friends, you need to find a spouse, you need to think about your career. Like, there's a tall list, so tall a list of what the society thinks you should be doing to truly succeed and enjoy your one big wild life. And so when you're coming to terms with this tall list and you're asking yourself, okay, this makes no sense, I'm not going to do that, you check it off. At some point you're like, why doesn't it make sense though? Like, I really have not bothered to ask where that is coming from. It's like you're literally looking at this list on the paper. Literally picture yourself looking at a paper, and I have a paper here. Hopefully you can hear it. So you're looking at the paper with this tall list of things you're needing to do, and it's like, oh, you're essentially 24 or 25 years old now. This is your list of societal expectations you need to meet if you want to succeed. You look at the list and like, okay, this makes no sense. I don't understand this one. I don't understand that one. Okay, this can make sense. Okay, I need to take care of my parents. Okay, that makes sense. What do you mean I need to have an emergency fund? That doesn't make sense. I'm not doing that. So you're literally looking at this list, and there's some things that don't sit right with you. My version from going from rebellion to curiosity now went back to the list to say, why do we need this to succeed? Do you understand? I'm asking myself, why do we need these things to succeed? And that curiosity took me on questioning literally everything. Think of politics, religion, economics, to marriage and family life, to education, to health, all the practices under these various social institutions. Like, okay, why do we need a government? Why do we need a God? Why do we need to work? Why do we need to be married? Why do we need to go to school? And why do I need to watch what I eat? Like asking those questions instead of just looking at the list and say, oh, actually, they said you should be doing this, so I'm just going to do that. So in that curiosity stage, that was really my life. So I spent a couple of years, and I think that has been a habit that is still with me till today. And every time I hear something, every time I read something, I'm going into Google, I'm going into YouTube, I'm doing a deep dive, I'm trying to understand where exactly is this coming from. Fun facts about politics, and I guess that's also some that adds a bit of layers to your thinking as you embark on those things, as you really try to question these things. For me, one of the things, like basic things, as who was the first person to wear a white gown to a church wedding? What is the concept of a church wedding, for example, for Africans, right? And then you go into history, like, oh, actually, there was once a queen, I think it was a Queen Victoria in England, who said she wanted her wedding gown to be white when everybody else's was a different color, and it became a norm. All of a sudden, people slapped religion to it and slapped politics to it and slapped different things to it so much that it has become a social expectation. But it was literally somebody's preference. Somebody 100 and something, well, 200 or I guess something years ago said, I'm literally, like, they're saying, I'm going to have this for breakfast, and then all of a sudden, can you imagine how wild it is? Somebody decides, I'm going to have this for breakfast, and all of a sudden the entire world, centuries after, are indoctrinated with this idea that this is the right breakfast you should have. Even the concept of breakfast needs to be questioned. And so questioning everything was my second stage of the journey to finding my enoughness, because that was when I dug deep, and when I realized that some of the reasons and the history behind all these practices were literally one from an African perspective, colonial legacies; two, there were religious practices; three, there were general life principles; and four, there were deeply valued traditions that even our local societies, our traditional societies upheld. Having that interaction with these different findings made it easier for me to now relook at the list and say, actually, I do understand where this is. I do understand where the principle is with this particular societal expectation. Here's how I am going to now achieve the same principle, or respect, or adhere to the same principle, because I see where the benefit is, whether to conform or not to conform. And I'm going to take that route because I want all the benefits, right? So it's literally saying, I'm not going from, I don't want to do any of this, I'm going to find my own way, to actually stopping in my tracks. So like, but can you explain to me why though? What exactly were we solving for? How did we get here, right? And now coming into the next stage, or the next phase of my evolution to enoughness being what makes sense for me and how can I interrogate these different society expectations based on the sometimes good intention, sometimes not so good intentioned reasons behind it, and find value for them as a wise person in my life. Because the truth of the matter is, some of these things, not some of these things, all of these things are coming from somewhere. It's good to know where they're coming from. It's good to know where they came from in terms of context within which they came from. And then it's also good to understand how they are, in essence, an accumulation of ancient knowledge you don't want to throw away, because you're living here for a very short time, right? And so you don't want to repeat mistakes that generations before you have made. And so your hack is to trying to be efficient with your time here on earth by learning from people who have been ahead of you and how they have designed these systems. But also ask yourself, they are not really, no matter how well intentioned their advice and tips are, they are not living this life you're living in the year they call 2026. They have never lived in a 2026 at the same age with the same global happenings, with the same challenges, with the same, like, they are not you. They are not experiencing the world the way you do at a particular time in history like you do. And so it's important for you to find a balance between understanding the principle under some of these societal expectations and suggestions, and finding your own path, which is now the third phase I have been on for recent years. So these days, obviously, because I was younger, the rebellion path was easier because youthful exuberance, but the curiosity part helped me find my answers. For most young people, there is a deep need to have answers to life's big questions, and it's in this curiosity phase that I find that has really solved for mine. I no longer have shaky faith with my faith with God, based on some of the questions people ask, like, okay, well, Jesus, for example, I'm Christian, whether Jesus was a white man or not, or Christianity was a white person's religion or not. I don't have those questions. They don't bother me. They don't they don't hinder my relationship, my with the faith and with God, because I've done the work to and to be honest, I did the work years before I came to the age where I realized I should be having those questions, but I didn't. I did the work before at that curiosity phase. I would say those were like my 23, 24-year-old self, and then have come to this area where I'm balancing what's good, what's not so good for me, not necessarily labeling all of them as good or not good. And so that has been my third phase. Now, the current phase I am now is like, I would say experimentation and having fun with all the things that I have accumulated in terms of knowledge, ideas, tips, hacks, observations, thought processes, learning from the word of God, and just interacting with people. Like having this, coming to this place where I'm like, I know all these things, I know where these ideas are coming from. Now I want to test and see where they fit and where they actually do not fit in my life. Like, it's a constant cycle of checking again. And this day, in these past few months, they've looked like, stripping down everything, and coming to the understanding that I am enough just by myself, and really interrogating and investigating really what it means if I decide not to add any value to myself. What would that look like? Am I going to be outdated? Will I still be enough? Will I still have value as a person if I decide not to do certain things that society calls value addition? And I've come to the understanding that most of these value addition ideas that people push is based on this idea that there's always room for improvement, which is good. But the point is, nobody has ever asked themselves, have we lived in the room as it is, even before trying to explore its improvement areas? Like whichever room there is for improvement, I'm sure there was a previous room you were in, right? Like, did you enjoy the previous room you were in where it didn't have any space for improvement? Did you enjoy that space? Like, were you fixated on the next room so much that you forgot to really feel the ground your feet were on in those rooms? Like, you didn't give yourself the joy of enjoying the room. You get that's where I am now. Like, I'm in the space where I'm like, I'm not doing any of these things that make no sense to me, because I really want to enjoy being me, being myself without any addition, without any all those things. Especially and I think this is gonna need a part 3. But one of the things I have learned so far is, for a woman, if you're a man, sorry, I hope. Well, I'm guessing you would also have some relation, in a different way to this. But for me, as an African woman, that looks very scary, because for us, we have been marketed an ideal subconsciously from, a couple of centuries now, that this is how we should show up, this is how we should look like. We should have, our hair should be in a certain way, our face should be in a certain way, our bodies should be in a certain way, the way we speak should be in a certain, like all these things, like they call it manners or being civilized, and all these words that make no sense to me. And they do, and they have these tall order of things that you should be doing. And I ask myself, what would life look like if I decide not to do any of these things? If I defer to just being a human being who I believe, not I believe, it's actually a fact. God has created me with value. He created me, he saw me, he was like, she's good. I'm like, okay, I want to sit in that goodness. I just want to explore what does that goodness really mean. And so now these days, my enoughness has come to getting back to understanding the full scope of what it means to be me, without the constant urge, without the constant pressure to want to be better. I do want to be better. I do want to be all those things, but not now. Right now, I want to enjoy myself as I am. And I'm finding that I'm also enjoying the benefits of all the previous years' efforts to be better. Like all the years, I was like, let me be better, let me be better. I'm now coming to the stage, I'm like, oh, okay, let me pause here and enjoy the better version that I have built over the years before I continue. So climbing, climbing a set of stairs, and you get to the loft landing of the staircase. That's where you take a pause to really enjoy how far you've come, how high you've climbed, if I can call it that way. A bit about a bit of the view, to just enjoy and bask in it, right? Before you say, okay, I now have a full idea of how far I've come. I know how much more I need to go. I want to go forward, right? And that's where I am. And that's where my enoughness is coming from right now. So right now, my idea of being better, a better version of myself, is looking like understanding first the scope of all that I am, all that I have, and now noting down all the things I want to be better at as I'm moving into the next phase. And I'm not even in a rush to move in the next phase, because being here is so much fun. I'm telling you, being in this space where you don't have to do anything, you have no pressure, like you reject the pressure to do anything, you show up as your full self, you show up as a version of yourself you enjoy, not a version of yourself you want to show off. It's so enjoyable. It's so enjoyable. I'm learning to have a different relationship with my hair. I'm learning to have a new relationship with my clothing style, the colors I like, the colors I don't like. I'm not pressuring myself to look like anybody except for myself. And obviously, except for my mom, who would be screaming in my ear. My mom is a fashionista. So low-key, she's a fashionista. So I need to make her proud. These are my two priorities: making both of us proud and making both of us excited about how we engage the world, and that has been my own version or understanding of, sitting in my enoughness. And so this is now my invitation to you. Do you know the full scope of who exactly you are without the need to constantly improve? Do you know the full scope of who exactly you are without needing to improve yourself? I'm going to leave that thought with you, and hopefully in the next episode we can unpack a bit more. But if you want to unpack with me, there is a form in the show notes. It's a Google form. Share your thoughts, your ideas, things you're thinking about, things you're excited about doing the new year, whatever it is. I really want to hear from you, so you can share that in the show notes, in the form, with the form in the show notes, and I'm gonna read them in the subsequent episodes. But this is what I'm going to leave you with. I'm going to repeat the prompt again. Happy for you to go sit with yourself, to think about it a bit more. Do you know the full scope of who exactly you are without the need to improve yourself? I'll see you in the next one. Take care.